Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Toledo. Today we'll present another great program with American and internationally known composer Sam Adler. And we were enjoying some of Mr. Adler's music before the meeting, and you'll hear a little bit after when we're adjourned today. I'd like to ask Keith Burwell to come to the podium to deliver a reflection and have Jim Wadner lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance afterwards.
A few interesting notes about today. The most important for me is it's National Pound Cake Day. But it's also the original inauguration day. And it's the day in 1789 when Congress actually declared the Constitution of the United States to be in effect. And that led to it being declared Courageous Followers Day. So an idea of courage is something that everybody wants. It's an attribute of good character that makes us worthy of respect. From the Bible to fairy tales, ancient myths to Hollywood movies, our culture is rich with exemplary tales of bravery and self-sacrifice for the good. From the cowardly lion in The Wizard of Oz, who finds courage to face the witch, to David battling Goliath in the Bible, to Star Wars, Harry Potter, we raise each other and our children on a diet of heroic and inspirational tales. Yet courage is not just physical bravery. Our history books tells us colorful tales of social activists such as Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, who choose to speak out against injustice at great personal risk. Entrepreneurs such as Steve Jobs and Walt Disney, who took financial risks to follow their dreams and innovate like modern-day knights, exemplifying the awards and public accolades that courage can bring. These are many different types of courage. On this day, as we reflect on courage from physical strength to enduring mental stamina and innovation, let's think about 5 separate features as we reflect and ponder with our Almighty. That courage is feeling fear, yet choosing to act. As the proverb says, fear and courage are brothers. Courage is following our heart. As Steve Jobs says once, and most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Or Søren Kierkegaard, to dare to lose one's footing momentarily is to dare to lose oneself. Courage is persevering in the face of adversity. As Mark Twain said, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Courage is standing up for what is right. As Tal said, from caring comes courage. And finally, as we reflect, facing suffering with dignity or faith is what courage is made of. As Cicero said, a man of courage is also a man full of faith. So on this day, let us take a moment in silence and think about the courageous acts we should follow each and every day in these 5 attributes. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Keith and Jim. As we begin our meeting today, I'd like to thank and acknowledge Hartman and Associates as this month's sponsor. Now, greeter Ford Bennett will introduce today's visiting Rotarians.
Good morning, everyone. President Dick, we have 2 visiting Rotarians today. Visiting Rotarians, please stand as I read your name and remain standing until President Dick welcomes you. We have with us Michelle Free, Mommy, the president of the Mommy Club, and
Michelle.
And Colin Cass from Bowling Green.
Yeah. Welcome to you both. It's great to have you here. Now, if anyone has any other guests they would like to introduce today, I would invite you to go to the floor mic so we can see you and your guest.
President Dick and fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce my guests today, Giselle and Dustin Johnson.
Nice to have you both here today. Thank you, Janine. Now I'd like to ask Zach Isaac to come to the floor mic to make an announcement from the new member committee.
Thanks, President Dick. We had a great turnout last Wednesday or Thursday, wherever it was, with the Epic group, the after hours. If I was a guessing man, I would guess there were over 100 people there. We had our senior officers at Rotary there, and the young professionals we saw that evening were just remarkable, to the point that Colin, who you just met, Colin Cass, is my guest today. He, unfortunately, is a member of the Bowling Green Rotary, but he was so pleased with what he met, he's going to be joining Toledo Rotary.
Oh, wonderful.
We have 120 days left in the fiscal year, everybody, and we've had 33 new members to date. Our goal is 75, so we've got a long ways to go. I guess on behalf of the new member committee, we'd like to encourage everyone to keep bringing your friends to lunch, but the follow-up is the key. So please follow up with your guests, because we're determined to get that 75 new members and get our standing in the International Rotary higher than it is this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. And just a reminder that while the new member committee does a great job, it is all of our responsibility to bring new good members into this club. Now I'd like to ask Kurt Church, chair of the Vocational Services Committee, to make an announcement.
Good afternoon, President Dick, fellow Rotarians. I'm here to announce the Interact interviews that you may have remembered from years past. High school students are members of an Interact group following Rotary International principles. And we have the interviews coming up with St. Francis on March 25th and the Young Men and Women of Excellence from TPS on April 8th. So happens to be also Dr. Durant's speech to the group. Therefore, I need your help to show these young people what Rotary is about, as well as guide them in potentially learning about your career and how you got there. So please sign up. You can go to the website, use Sign Up Genius. St. Francis has particular interests, their students there. TPS does not. We are looking anything from veterinarians in the medical field down to business and finance. Thanks very much.
And now I would like to ask Scott Hinshaw to come to the floor mic to make an announcement from the Member Engagement Committee.
Thank you, President Dick. In case you didn't see it in the spoke or hear about it in the announcements last week, our March Matchness event is back. Friday, March 22nd, we will be at the Toledo Club from noon to 8, enjoying the first round of the college basketball tournament games. We will have food, we'll have friends and colleagues. This is a great opportunity to bring in some recruits, possibly, have them enjoy and get to know Rotary. We will also have competing celebrity bartenders, and they're going to compete for your tips. We have a couple already signed up, which should be interesting. I know that Whitney Rothgar and my friend here, Kevin Mullen, think that they can rake in more than me. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. We also have Tom Backoff and Shireen Murad, who are going to go up against Sarah Swisher and Hannah Murad. So the sparks are going to fly on that one, too. You make sure you don't miss it. There's still some slots left over. I'm trying to get some past presidents in. I think I got past President Joe to sign up today, and maybe a few other people. Maybe some roamers can come. We'll see what happens. So please put it on your calendars. The tips will all be donated to the Toledo Rotary Foundation. The first $10,000 of tips will be matched by several very generous Rotarians, including the Mark Makalinsky Family Foundation. So put it on your calendars. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. It's a great event. Now would be a great time to check into social media to let everyone know you are at the Rotary Club of Toledo. And I ask that you please silence your phones for the rest of today's meeting. I want to remind everybody about Rotary Kids Day, which is March 16th at the Toledo School for the Arts. It's a musical enrichment event for children from kindergarten through 8th grade. Registration at TSA is 8:30 to 9 a.m. that date, and the event is from 9 to 11:30 a.m. It's $5 per child. Bring your kids and grandkids and friends. It's open to everyone, not just Rotarians. And please remember that club members are invited to donate used instruments. Maybe some of you brought some today, but next Monday we'll be accepting those also. And those instruments will go to a local organization, Be Instrumental, which provides musical instruments and education to underprivileged children in our area. Instruments can also be donated the morning of the event at TSA. Remember, that's March 16th, Saturday morning at TSA. All of you should have received the save the date for the 2019 Black Tie Affair regarding our transformational projects, and it's our big fundraiser. And of course, we can't get out of our memories last week's exhibition from Chuck Mann and Muddy the Mud Hen. A reminder that Walt Churchill is the honorary chair this year, and the entertainment will be a roast of Rotarian Joe Napoli. Information about tickets and sponsorships will be coming soon. And I'd like to acknowledge and thank today the presenting co-sponsors for the 2019 Black Tie Affair, Edie Properties and Emosteria. I also want to mention and emphasize a particular way that we can give. And I know many of you have heard about this, and those of you within our club know about Paul Harris Fellows. But those of you who are newer may not know what a Paul Harris Fellowship is. We are a part of Rotary International, and Rotary International receives donations from Rotarians and non-Rotarians from all over the world. The Paul Harris Fellow recognition acknowledges individuals who contribute or who have contributions made in their name of $1,000 to the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International. This does not have to be a one-time donation. It can be an accumulation of donations that amount to $1,000 over time. Rotarians often designate a Paul Harris Fellow as a tribute to a person whose life demonstrates a shared purpose with the objectives of the Rotary Foundation. The Paul Harris Fellowship is named for our founder, Paul Harris, who began Rotary with 3 business associates in Chicago in 1905. Rotary International named this special level of giving after Paul Harris because of all that he was about and all that he stood for. Paul Harris pioneered the service club movement with the foundation of Rotary International. Rotary fulfilled his dream of a worldwide organization of business and professional people serving their communities and promoting international understanding and peace. In partnership with Rotary International, Rotarians in the over 35,000 Rotary clubs throughout this world carry out sustainable service projects in our 6 areas of focus. With donations from Paul Harris Fellows and others, we've wiped out 99% of all polio cases throughout the world. Donations also train future peacemakers, provide clean water, improve health, support families, educate children, and strengthen local economies. I would like to ask everyone in this room who is a Paul Harris Fellow to please stand up and be recognized at this time. I congratulate and thank each and every one of you, and I hope all of you in this room will consider being a Paul Harris Fellow in the near future. Now I'd like to invite Rotarian Cindy Carr to the podium to introduce new member Fadi Sabani.
Good afternoon, everyone. Fadi graduated from Humber College in Toronto, Canada, in hospitality management. At the end of 2018, he actually joined Toledo Renaissance Downtown Hotel as the Director of Sales and Marketing. In this role, Fadi is responsible for driving revenue growth, cultivating relationships, developing comprehensive marketing plans, and elevating client experiences. Fadi specializes in luxury and upscale hotels as he opened 5 luxury hotels in Dubai and Toronto. In 2010, Fadi opened the first Trump International Hotel and Tower in Canada, which earns Toronto's first ever Forbes 5-star hotel and the #1 luxury hotel in Canada in 2014 and 15. Most recently, Fadi transferred the property from Trump Hotels to the first St. Regis Hotel in Canada. Fadi married a Toledo woman, and after 8 failed attempts of trying to get him to relocate back here to Toledo, it took Jeff Hassan, who's actually the general manager of the Renaissance Hotel, to bring him back here in just 1 month. So Fadi enjoys time with his wife Tricia, his 2 kids, Liliana 4, William 3. He's also passionate about sports, especially hockey and soccer, and loves to take advantage of all the hotel perks and to travel. And Fadi's pet peeve are people without manners or courtesy. So, fellow Rotarians, please give us a warm welcome to Fadi Sabani.
At this time, I'd like to ask Rotarian Doug Neckers to come to the podium to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you very much, President Dick. It's not often that one gets a chance to wish a 91-year-old man happy birthday on his birthday. So let's stand and sing to Sam Adler, Happy Birthday, with a real Rotary welcome. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Sam, happy birthday to you. Sam is very well known around here and around the world, and it's a real pleasure for me to introduce him to you. He's a composer of extraordinary success. 2 pieces performed locally. His tuba concerto with the premiered locally. His tuba concerto with the Toledo Symphony last November, and November 11th of 2018, a memorial to Kristallnacht at the temple in North Toledo, which was extraordinarily collaborative with the College of Music at Bowling Green State University. Sam is a man of a wealth of information, a wealth of experience. He survived leaving with his family Nazi Germany in 1939, and I'm sure he's going to tell you a bit about his story, his life story of living with music and living in the United States, which is the greatest country in the world. And Sam will tell you right up front that that's the case. Sam?
Thank you very much, Doug. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for the good birthday wishes. I was going to talk about miracles. The first miracle is that I'm still alive. You're probably wondering if today's speaker is a bit challenged or somehow naive. And I would not blame you for that belief, but I hope by the end of my brief talk you'll agree with me that miracles do happen, since I will present them as having occurred in my very long life. I'm 91 today. In preparation for this talk, and while I was pondering the subject, I looked up the dictionary definition of a miracle and found the following: an event in the physical world deviating from the norm or transcending our knowledge of the laws of nature. And third, an extraordinary, anomalous, abnormal occasion for which one can find no explanation. When I'm through this afternoon, you're free to choose any explanation that fits my miracles or yours. I'll limit myself to about 3 or 3.5 miracles that happened to me, and hope you'll enjoy reliving them with me. I'd like to begin with introducing my father, who was a cantor in a liberal synagogue in Mannheim, Germany, and of course, when we came to this country in Worcester, Massachusetts. But let's go back to his origins. He had just graduated from the University of Cologne and from the Cantor's Assembly Institute there, and got a job in a larger city, the city of Mannheim. He became the second cantor of 4 in a very large congregation, and he was by nature a rebel. He came there and he had to learn the music that was traditional to that congregation. And God forbid you would change one note, because this was tradition that came from Sinai, you see. And so therefore, he thought otherwise. He thought that this music was from the 19th century and was of a very low quality. So he decided in 1921, when he got there, that he's going to change the tradition. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you all belong to some kind of a group that never changes tradition, and this was the case in the Mannheim synagogue. He changed things over and over again. He didn't like the harmony, he didn't like the melody, and so on and so forth. Well, by the end of the second year of this rebellion, of the music he just didn't like, he was told that if he changes one more pitch, he would have to find another job. He did something very, very smart. He married my mother. And the reason it was smart was 2 ways. First, her father was quite a rich man who owned a store and therefore was on the board of the congregation, and you don't fire the son-in-law of a board member. And so therefore, the second reason was that she actually was a very good influence on him. She told him, don't change anything, just write your own music. And he did, and he became quite well known for it. Now remember, he changed everything because he didn't like the traditional music. Well, I go ahead now and leap to 1938. As probably many of you know, on the 10th of November, from the 9th to the 10th, the Nazis destroyed all the synagogues in Germany and Austria and took 50,000 men into custody and put them into camps. We, on that day, received our passports because, you see, the first part of the miracle was that my father was born in Belgium instead of in Germany. His father was on a guest appearance in Belgium, and 2 of his brothers and he were born there. Well, in that case, as you might know, we were Belgian citizens, and we could get out, while if he had been German citizens, the German visa line was so long, nobody could get out anymore unless you had put in 3 years before. Well, we were able to try to get our visa soon. So he got the passport, and he went. He said to my mother, I'm going to flee the country. I'm not going to go to a concentration camp. I'm going to get on a train and go to Holland. Well, stupidly, he went on the train, and every Jew had a J in his passport. So when he got to the border, they took him out, put him into Sachsenhausen, which was a concentration camp. 3 days later, President Roosevelt withdrew the American ambassador from Berlin and said, with barbarians who do things like this to their own citizens, we can't do business. So in order, a gesture of appeasement to the Americans, 50,000 of the men that were taken into custody were released, including my father. And what do you think happened? He came home, and the first thing he said, before we go to America, I have to go into the synagogue, which had been bombed and was in ruins. I know a way to go in and get the music so we can take it to America. Now, this is the music, you know what he did to it. But tradition had to be, he's going to get it. Well, he said to my mother, I'm going to take our boy and we're going to go. And my mother said, you're crazy, the SS is in there. So, well, no was never the answer for my father. He knew a way of getting underground into the choir loft. We did this. We heard the group of SS downstairs, and they had put a bomb into the altar and the bomb under the organ, and the organ was hanging over the gallery by one cable. Well, we were up there. It was terrible. Everything was destroyed. There had been a bomb there, after all. But we did find the 17 part books. And there was a lot of dust, and I was 10 years old. I sneezed. The captain downstairs said, go upstairs and kill anyone in sight. At that moment, the organ fell down. First miracle since I'm here. And you know, the idea of miracles is very strange. I will skip now ahead and tell you another one, perhaps another reason I'm here. When I went to graduate school at Harvard University, I was also of need, a great need for money. Although I have to say, and I hate to say this right now because I know how much college is, but a year at Harvard graduate school in those days was $600. I had a $900 fellowship. It's quite something. I was a rich man. At any rate, however, I had to make some extra money. I also had a girlfriend. She was very expensive. And so I was very ecumenical in those days. I had a children's choir in a Catholic church. I had a women's choir in an Episcopal church, and I was music director. Oh, and I had a men's chorus in a Reform Jewish congregation and was music director in a conservative congregation. I was making $40 a week. That's a lot of money. At any rate, on the day that I received my graduate degree, I also received an invitation by Uncle Sam to join the American Army, all in one day. Well, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I grew up playing the violin and the viola. I never had a gun in my sights nor in my hand. I was scared to death. To go into the army, I mean, it's horrendous. Well, I found out that the rabbi of the congregation where I was music director was the chief Jewish chaplain in the Second World War, attached to General Eisenhower's headquarters. So I went to see him, and I said, Rabbi Nadich, I'm so scared. He said, what are you talking about? You've got all these degrees in music. We're going to get you into a band in Washington. You don't have anything to worry about. There was a telephone on his desk. He called the chief chaplain at Fort Devens, where I was going to be initiated. And he said, Joe, we've gone through the war together. I want you to do me a favor. He said, Judah, I'll do anything for you. I remember, we were 4 years together, and so on and so forth. I'll do anything you want me to do. I'd like you to get this young man into a band in Washington. He said, no problem. It's fine. Well, I was relieved. A month later, I was inducted into the Army at Fort Devens. The first thing I did, per instructions, I went to see the Catholic chaplain, Father O'Malley. Lovely man. He said, Sam, I hope you're not worried about anything because I've already started everything. But, of course, tomorrow you have to take all these exams because we have to find out what things you can do in the Army. I said, well, the only thing I can do all kinds. I can arrange for the band. I can play in the band. I can conduct the band. He said, don't worry about it. We'll get something. The next day was exam day. We had 21 short exams, all multiple choice. Well, the first one was English, second one history, third one geography. I mean, very simple stuff. All of a sudden came electronics. I raised my hand like a good civilian. The sergeant came over. I said, Sergeant, I don't know anything about electronics. I don't know. He said, GD, take the exam. I put A, F, C, you know. Next exam was radio repair. Now, what do I know about radio repair? I didn't say anything to the sergeant. I just closed the thing and put, you know. The next night was Friday. I went to see the chaplain as he asked me to. And he said, Sam, you know, I can't do anything for you. I said, why? He said, well, what do you do besides music? I said, well, I read a lot. He said, no. You have the highest score on electronics and radio repair that we ever had. So we're going to put you into the 2nd Armored Division because we need people who can do these things. You talk about miracles? Well, I tell you, they put me into the 2nd Armored Division, and I was Fire Direction Chief for the artillery. Well, what happened? I had to find out the trajectory of how we're going to fire. Well, we did a lot of firing in Texas, and we hit a lot of cows. So, well, you know, these things happen. The next, we were sent to Europe right away. And this was a great miracle because we had 5,000 men inducted the same day as I at Fort Devens. 4,400 went to Korea because the Korean War was in dire shape. 600 were sent to Germany to again form Patton's division. We were the first troops, American troops, sent to Europe after the war as actual combat people. Well, on the way over, since I spoke the language that they were going to hear, the officers asked me every day for lunch to teach them a few phrases in German. You know, where's the bathroom and so on and so forth. Well, I did this. They weren't very good students, but that doesn't matter. I tried, and one of the chaplains, a Methodist chaplain from Texas, said, Sam, I want to see you afterwards. I said, what, did I do something? I said, no, but I find you're so nervous about going back to Germany. Well, I said, 10 years ago, they threw us out. He said, that's exactly why I'm going to talk to you. I want you to remember what I say, and that is, you left as a Jewish refugee. Now you're going back in a conquering army. I want you to remember that. Well, it changed my attitude towards going back. The fear turned into something else. It turned into a hope that I can do something over there that is significant. Well, we got there, and talk about miraculous things. The division was to meet at Y79, coordinates on the map. And we got there, and it was half a mile from where we lived in Mannheim. I could see the house, and it was the only house that had a roof on it, because Mannheim had been very badly bombed. But our house still had a roof on it. Well, it was a very strange feeling. And because I could play the organ a little, I was very helpful to all the chaplains. And the chaplains took a liking to me and said, Sam, let's take a Jeep and go to where we're going to be stationed, which was way in the Palatinate in a place called Baumholder. I hope you never get there. It's a pretty awful place, but that was our home to be. Well, we got there, and there were no troops yet, but 5 days later, everybody arrived. I just want to set the scene for you. Baumholder was a town of 3,600 people. We were 24,000 troops. You can imagine what happened in that town on Saturday afternoon when everybody was free to go to town. There wasn't anybody that was untouched. Well, it got so bad that our general, who was a wonderful man, very smart, West Point graduate, said, look, we got to do something to have better relations with these towns. So one chaplain said, you know, we have Adler, he conducts the chapel choir and so on and so forth. He speaks the language. He said, look, let him go down and get one German person to come up here and play for rehearsals. And we have an organist for Sunday. You know, we did 7 services from 7 o'clock on, you know, every Sunday. And we had a wonderful chapel choir, but we needed somebody for rehearsal. Okay, we found out there was one Catholic church and one Protestant church. And in those days, you had to be very careful. If the Catholic church was on top and the Protestant church below, it was a Catholic town. Vice versa, it was a Protestant town. And it was very important you knew that. Well, we found out that the organist in the Catholic church, which was below, was better than the one in the Protestant church. So we found out that it was a lady. So I took my Jeep, went downtown, and when I got to the house, they were scared to death. They put down the blinds and everything as if they weren't home. Well, I saw them put down the blinds, so I knocked at the door, and in my best South German, I said to them, you don't have to be afraid. I just want to talk to Miss Seibert. Well, they immediately knew where I came from. They opened the door and sort of adopted me as a son, since they had 4 daughters. So I said to her, why don't you come up and just play the rehearsal? Oh, no, I'm too scared. I said, listen, we'll pick you up, we'll take you back. That's it. She was also the teacher in the Catholic school. You see, in those days, as still in many of the European smaller towns, there's a division. The Catholics go to Catholic school, the Protestants go to Protestant school. Everything is parochial. Well, she came and she played, and after the second rehearsal, she said, Sam, listen, I've never seen, somebody work like you. Well, I had a lot of experience with choirs, and I can say I was a pretty good choral conductor. Well, she said, can't you do, we had the German troops, they ruined the town. We had the French troops, they ruined the town. Now we have you completely ruined the town. Couldn't you do something? I said, well, I'm musically for the town. I said, okay, let's form a town choir. And let's take the Catholic and the Protestant choir and we can't do that. We don't talk, we don't sing together. I said, come on, the 30-year war is over. So I said, we'll fix it. I asked our chief Protestant and our chief Catholic chaplains, who were my friends, to go down and talk to the priest and to the minister, who lived next door to one another and never spoke. Well, we got them to speak. We brought them coffee, tea, and for Mrs. Minister, we even brought a pair of silk stockings. Well, they spoke for the first time since the 30-year war, and we got together and we formed a choir. Well, it was October, so I said, look, we're going to have Christmas. Let's do the Messiah. Never heard of it. By the way, that is true of much of Europe. The Messiah is an English custom. They do it, of course, in the larger cities, but in the smaller towns, they do other things. Okay, we'll do it. A German orchestra asked me to come and guest conduct, and I said, look, instead of paying me because I'm in the army and I can't accept any money, why don't you come and play the Messiah for us? I said, okay. So we had an orchestra, we had the chorus singing in German, we had the soloists were GIs singing in English. The universal language was played by the orchestra. Something happened the next day that was the miracle, and it was that the German equivalent of the AP had a representative in the audience. And every major German paper the next day had an article saying Dresden and Buchenwald were forgotten last night. Well, the army brass went berserk. Here's this lousy little town, and they're setting the world on fire. The Germans are coming with the Americans in a big concert. We had 2 concerts, all 2,800 people, GIs and Germans and French and everybody. Well, General Pace, who was at that time the commanding officer besides General Eisenhower, General Pace called our general and said, "What the hell is going on there? We've never seen any such PR." He said, "Well, you know, we have a man here. I mean," he calls me in and said, "Adler, next week we have to have another concert." I said, "Well, we can't do that, you know. I mean, so let's do Easter." So, okay. So we had a concert at Easter, and there were 4 American soldiers, violin, viola, cello, and piano, who were going around, all in the army, going around the America houses in Europe, playing chamber music. And when special services in Stuttgart, which was our main special services, heard about it, they called our general and said, "We have these 4 musicians. They'd like to play in the orchestra and see what's going on." Well, we had a rehearsal, and these 4 guys, all from major American symphony orchestras, said, "Gee, we want to see what happens." We had the concert, again, 2,800 people, twice. After the concert, we went to the non-commissioned officers club. We were all either sergeants or corporals. And we talked, and they said, "What are you trying to do, Sam?" I said, "Look, we've got to build bridges between our soldiers and the population, because otherwise they're going to hate us and we'll never get any place." I said, "Gee," so what do you... I said, "Look, everybody's being drafted, whether you're a member of the New York Philharmonic or the Toledo Symphony or the San Francisco Symphony. Everybody's being drafted. Let's have an orchestra of American soldiers and play here, play their music and our music, and show them that we have a real culture." He said, "You think we could do that?" I said, "I'm positive." I didn't have to wait long. The next day, the miracle happened. The general in Stuttgart called our general and said, "Send this man down today." They sent a car. I went to headquarters. They said, "Do you really think this can be done?" I said, "I know it can be done. We have all these fantastic musicians. Of course we can do it." Well, this was the founding of the 7th Army Symphony Orchestra, the only orchestra ever in the United States Army. We played, I was there for another 6 months. We played 90 concerts in the 6 months. We also, as an aside, played for the farewell of General Eisenhower, who was going home first to be the president of Columbia University, and after that, as you all know, he became the president of the United States. Well, he came back after the concert, and he said, "Corporal, I think this is the most fantastic thing that ever happened psychologically after the war. But I don't like the uniform you're wearing." I said, "Sir, I'm wearing an Ike jacket, as we all were." He said, "But for a conductor, it doesn't really make it. You come to my office tomorrow, and I'll see what we're going to do." Well, if General Eisenhower says I should come to his office, of course I go. 10 o'clock, I was in the office, and he had a tailor make me a white general's uniform with corporal stripes on it. Well, it couldn't have been more miraculous. The orchestra lasted for 11 years, had 1,300 men in it, saved everybody's life while nobody had to go to Korea. 15 conductors came through, all had big careers afterwards, and it was my contribution to the United States Army. As a matter of fact, if you want to read about it, there's a book written called Uncle Sam's Symphony, which is a double entente. So, you see, maybe the biggest miracle is my longevity, but maybe good genes and luckily a young wife, so that makes for continuity. I'm very grateful for it, and I hope you have as many miracles in your life as I had in mine. I thank you so much for listening.
Let's see if it's a good question. First, you're going to get a standing ovation.
Thank you very much. We have 5 minutes to have some questions yet.
At what age did you get married?
What's that?
At what age did you get married?
Well, I've been married twice, so I got married at 35, and I got married again at 68.
Thank you.
Isn't that horrible? No, I have to say I've had a wonderful time in Toledo. I was at the Eastman School for 30 years, and married a woman whose job was the orchestra conductor at Bowling Green State University. So I moved here after retiring from Eastman in 1995, and then we've been living first in Bowling Green and now in Perrysburg, and ever since then, and that's why I'm here for the last 20 years until 2017. From 1997 to 2017, I commuted every week to New York to teach at the Juilliard School. I finally hung it up. It was a little too much.
If there's nothing else, again, Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I can only hope when I'm 71 that I have the spirit and verve that this gentleman has. Sam, thank you so much for today's great program. To show our appreciation, the Toledo Rotary Club Foundation is going to make a donation in your name to the Rotary International Polio Plus Foundation to continue our fight against polio. And we have a book, Historical Tales of Toledo, by whom I understand your neighbor, Clint Mock. So you may have this already, but just in case you don't, here you go. Please join us next week when our speaker will be President Lyle Roloffs, Berea College president. President-elect Tim Ryan will be leading that meeting. Immediately following today's program, the Black Tie Affair Auction Committee is meeting in the Presque Isle Room upstairs. Fadi, again, welcome to Toledo Rotary, and Cindy, thank you for bringing Fadi into our club. I believe he's doing a solo act today. No assistance.
Thankfully.
Past President Chuck Mann.
Musicians' jokes. What's the difference between a pianist and God? God doesn't think he's a pianist. See, sometimes they... What is the definition of a minor second interval? Two soprano sax players reading off the same part. Now, if you get that, please hang around afterwards and explain it to the rest of us, because it's... How many folk singers does it take to change a light bulb? 1 to change it and 5 to sing about how good the old one was. Why couldn't the string quartet find their composer? He was hiding. Yeah, well, okay, you can't win them all. How do you fix a broken brass instrument? With a tube of glue. And finally, what do you get when you drop a piano down a mine shaft? A flat minor.
Thank you, Chuck. Now that we're all in the proper mood, let's remember to be servants out there so we can be the inspiration. We are adjourned. A real pleasure, Sam. Thank you so much. Happy birthday again.